Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
We want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, this week, undefeated 140-pound contender Gary Antuanne Russell will be joining us. Plus, in this week's toe-to-toe segment, Mike and I will list our choices for the top 3 most underrated PBC fighters. But before we get into all that, let's begin with the week in review. Last Saturday, Premier Boxing Champions on SHOWTIME brought us 3 super lightweight matchups. And in the main event, former 135-pound interim champion Rolando "Rolly" Romero moved up to 140 to face Romero-Barroso for the vacant WBA world title. Romero was dropped in the 3rd and down on the cards when he floored Barroso in the 9th and was awarded a TKO win that same round when referee Tony Weeks stopped the action while the 2 fighters were exchanging. Mike, that stoppage was a tad bit controversial, to say the least.
Yeah, a tad bit. I think it was one of the worst I've seen in quite a long time. I think Barroso might have been in, somewhat of a weakened state, but he was on his feet and he was firing back at Romero at that moment. As a matter of fact, I saw Barroso land 2 punches in the final seconds while Romero was missing his shots. At least that's the way it appeared to me. So yeah, it was pretty bad. I know a lot of people are outraged. Some people even screamed corruption. I don't think that's what it was. Although the sport probably did take a hit because of that. I think it was just a mistake by a guy who's normally a good referee.
Do you think, we saw something that we didn't?
I actually wrote that. No one other than Romero is as close to Barroso as Weeks was. Maybe he saw something, that didn't sit well with him at that moment. I think we have to acknowledge that possibility. That said, I just don't think you stop a fight when the knockout victim is throwing punches and arguably getting the better of the other guy at that moment. Barroso clearly was able to defend himself because he was doing so. So I really don't get what the thought process was on Weeks' part. I had a funny experience. There's a boxing fan at the grocery store I go to, and we talk about boxing sometimes. And this guy was just like outraged because that guy has to be fired. Blah blah blah. He's not going to be fired. He's a respected referee. He just had a really, really bad night.
Yeah, rough night. And it's hard to say, tell what he saw or at what point he decided to jump in. But yeah, from every vantage point that I saw, Barroso was still throwing. I don't know. I really don't know. What about the preceding knockdown? Because that was a bit controversial as well, with it looking like it was more of a push down.
Yeah, it was the combination of those 2 things that made Weeks look bad. I think he definitely blew that too, based on the replays. Romero did get Barroso with a left hook, but Barroso took that punch. It was a subsequent push from Romero that sent Barroso to the canvas, which replays just showed as clearly as possible. I'll say it again, though. Romero did land that left. That's why Barroso might have been in at least a somewhat weakened state in the moments that led to the stoppage, as I said earlier. But was it a knockdown? It certainly did not look like a knockdown. It was just, like I said, it was pretty clear it was a push that put him down.
Yeah, and he certainly was weak. And I think one thing that gets forgotten in all of this is the fact that Romero was coming on. It looked like that Barroso was sort of weakening. Not to say that, he couldn't have hung on to win or maybe even score a stoppage himself, but the momentum had changed at that point. As far as the knockdown, yeah, it looked like he had his arm around him and sort of helped him to the ground. It's something I've seen a million times. Just one of those things. What about Rolly, though? Let's talk about how he looked. What did you make of his performance?
To be honest, not his best night. He just wasn't active enough, which he was asked about afterward. He said, well, I didn't want to get caught with a punch from a big puncher, in so many words. I understand his concern, but you can't fight like that and expect to win, under normal circumstances. He threw less than 15 punches around in every round except for the 9th, according to CompuBox. That's a really low number. Barroso wasn't particularly busy either, but he put Romero down in the third round, and he pushed the action most of the fight, which is why he was leading on all 3 cards after 8 rounds. So in my opinion, Romero got what he needed in the end. I don't know what would happen in the last several rounds, but he got what he needed, which was a gift knockout.
Now, it's first of all, it's hard to say regarding Rolly. I did have some concerns coming off that Davis knockout last May.
I thought of that.
Yeah, we discussed it on the podcast last week. I just thought, man, that was watching that fight again. He was gun shy, and I feel like that was a hell of a blow he took. The momentum, everything, for a guy who doesn't have a lot of fighting experience. That said, I like the moxie that he showed against Barroso, and again, I felt like he was coming on. I would have loved to have seen, how the last few rounds would have played out. Afterward, Rolly said he wants Ryan Garcia. In your opinion, who wins that fight?
Garcia wins that fight. Say whatever you want about Garcia after the fight with Tank Davis. He has a deep amateur background. He knows how to box. He has elite speed and power. Pretty much everybody agrees with that. He has experience now in a mega fight, which he didn't have before. Romero has power too. I don't think that should be underestimated, but I think Garcia really has an edge across the board. I get why Romero called out Garcia. Garcia would make for a big event pretty much against anybody he fights. And we know now for sure that he's beatable. We saw it with our own eyes. I just don't think it would end well for Romero. He'd have to catch Garcia with a big shot, I think, to win the fight.
Yeah, I think, obviously Romero's seeing dollar signs with that fight. The build-up for that would be just tremendous, so I understand that would be perhaps a bigger fight than folks realize. But is that the fight you want to see for him next, or is there someone else?
I think the best fight for Romero is obvious from both a practical and an ethical, if you will, perspective. He should give Barroso a rematch. Everyone, including Romero, believes the fight shouldn't have been stopped, which means Barroso was cheated out of the chance to win his first world title at 40 years old. That would have really been something for him. Again, he was leading on all the cards after 8 rounds. It would have been a dream come true. And then it was just taken away. So who knows if Barroso will ever get another shot if Romero doesn't give it to him, a rematch. That might be it for him. And it's a good fight for Romero. I think he learns from the first fight. I think he performs better in the rematch. Certainly he'll be more active. He'll probably win the fight. I would favor him to win the fight. I understand that Romero wants big fights now. I 100% get that. It's a business, maybe before anything else. But I think he can wait just one more fight. I think it would behoove him to do so.
I think a lot of people feel that way. And, we'll see what the future holds. Now, in the co-feature, we had a bit of a crossroads fight, former 2-division world champion Francis Bartholomew against Omar Juarez, and a good scrap, hotly contested scrap. Bartholomew won a 10-round majority decision. Mike, this too had a bit of a controversial ending. What did you make of that decision?
I was okay with that decision. Neither guy was particularly busy, but Bartholomew did a decent job of picking his spots, and he was really, really accurate with his power shots. According to CompuBox, he landed 49% of them. That's a really high number. I think it could have gone like 1 point either way or a draw. So I'm good with a majority decision for Bartholomew.
What'd you make of his performance?
It was okay for the reasons I just mentioned. I don't think he made any kind of statement, though, and I'm sure he would have liked to, after he was stopped by Gary Antuanne Russell in his previous fight. It comes down to activity again, and it's going to be my theme here today. You can argue that Bartholomew deserved the nod, but he never really took control of the fight. Great fighters seize control of fights. They dominate, or at least try to dominate their opponents. Bartholomew just didn't do that. He did enough to win, but it wasn't spectacular by any means.
What about Juarez, who sort of came on as the fight progressed? What did you make of how he looked?
So this analysis is pretty simple, in my opinion. He looked good when he pushed the action, when he let his hands go, particularly when he pinned Bartholomew against the ropes. He would have won the fight, had he kept that up. The problem is that he didn't. He had long periods of inactivity. That allowed Bartholomew to do his work and win the fight. Juarez said afterward, he goes, I should have been more aggressive. It's like, duh. Do you know how many times I've heard that? Fighters say that, let your freaking hands go, particularly against a guy like Bartholomew, who isn't a big puncher. I know a lot of fighters regret not being busier in fights. It seems like that. I don't know. Let's put it this way. I'll never understand that. The guys they just don't do the work to win the fight. And that's what happened here.
Yeah, I think Barthelemy a little heavier handed than some folks realize. I mean, going back to the Gary Antuanne Russell fight, and even on here, his size was apparent. That said, he doesn't throw that much, so your point still stands. You can still let your hands go against him. What should be next for both guys?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Barthelemy, well, neither guy was ranked going into the fight. But Barthelemy's a proven guy, former 2-division title holder. I don't think he necessarily earned a title shot with his performance on Saturday, but I think he fights a contender next. I think, what he's accomplished in the past and the victory, I think he gets that. One guy I thought of was Bouhairie Akhmedov, who we're going to talk about, who lost, close decision to Kenneth Sims on the arguably disputed decision or controversial decision against Kenneth Sims on the same card. That would be a great fight for both guys. And if Barthelemy continues to win, then who knows? Maybe he'll get one more title shot before he's finished. He's 37, though. The clock's ticking for him.
Yeah, I'd love Akhmedov against either guy. I'd love to see it. Those both would be great fights, particularly him against Juarez. But speaking of Akhmedov, we got a Fight of the Year candidate in the televised opener. Kenneth Sims Jr. winning a 12-round majority decision over Akhmedov in the WBA super lightweight title eliminator. Mike, how did you score this one?
Well, first, Akhmedov showed how it's done. He didn't win, but he showed how it's done. You can't be much busier than Akhmedov. So I think any fighter should take a lesson from him. I thought Akhmedov was going to win a really close decision, but I'm okay with the scoring. Although I think 116-112 by one judge was too wide. I don't think that. I think the fight was a lot closer than that. Akhmedov fought like Omar Juarez should have fought, keeping constant pressure on Sims, as he always does. That's his style, and he just never deviates from that. The problem for him is that Sims never buckled under the pressure and had a lot of success countering Akhmedov as he attacked him. For what it's worth, according to CompuBox, they landed a similar number of punches. So I think it was a close fight. I think both guys can argue that they won.
Yeah, it certainly was a close fight. I didn't score it. I never do watching the fights for the first time, but it was very close. Both these guys really, really impressed me. I think Sims is a player at 140. I do feel like he got hit a lot, but Akhmedov is just really, really good. Another underrated fighter. We saw what he did to Romero-Barroso. He could easily be undefeated with the world title. That's how good Akhmedov is. What should be next for both of these guys?
Sims was ranked number 10 by the WBA going in, and he beat a number 3, which means he's closing in on a title shot if he continues to win. That's why he was so excited after the fight. He knew it was obvious to him how big this win was for him. It was a breakthrough win for him. I think Sims would be a good opponent for Rolando Romero if Romero doesn't get Garcia or fight Barroso again. Who knows how that plays out. Sims could also be an opponent for Gary Antuanne Russell. Yeah, although I guess Russell is targeting guys a little farther along than Sims. The point is that Sims is now in a pretty strong position. Akhmedov, I hope he doesn't throw in the towel, and I don't think he will, out of frustration. He's lost 3 disputed decisions, which is hard to swallow. I get why he thinks the powers that be are against him. I'm not sure they are, but I get why he feels that way. We saw what we saw, though. You mentioned it. This guy's a beast. I think he could get a ranked opponent, even off this loss. I think he's really, really good. And I think if he keeps coming, if he keeps trying, I think his time's going to come.
Yeah, although I can't imagine too many people being in a rush to get in the
that's true
in the ring with him. You brought him up, and we're going to stay in the 140-pound division. It's time to bring in our guest this week. He is the undefeated super lightweight contender, hailing from a family of boxing royalty, Gary Antuanne Russell. Gary, first things first, how are you and the family doing?
We're progressing. We see that everything that lays within our foresight now is progression, by any means.
Do you feel more connected with your brothers now, given everything that's transpired over the recent times?
I would say I've grown to know them more and more. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, there's no cap, no limitations to learning.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy because we haven't seen you in the ring for a while. You know, a lot of people have been talking about you. There was talk of you fighting Kent Cruz, and then I read somewhere that you had suffered an injury. Is that correct? Can you tell us, like, what's been going on with you?
Yes, during the camp dealing with Kent Cruz, I had sparred too early because we had actually had like a set time frame on when we was going to start the sparring and when we was going to start picking up the intensity on our tour days and stuff like that. But I was just so eager to spar and like sharpen my tools. I got in there early just to see where I was, and I had hurt my thumb, and I actually tore a couple of ligaments in my thumb. You know, not big tears, but teeny tears in the tendons around the thumb knuckle and on the upper side and the palm, the inner palm as well. So I had to therapize my way back to health. And surprisingly, a lot of people on the same card had to get postponed. Their fight had to get postponed because someone pissed dirty. Then you had another person that just,
That's right,
I don't know, couldn't make weight or whatever the case may be. And then I was just one of the ones right in the bunch. Like, God dang, get out of it. Hurt my hand.
That's an expensive lesson, I guess, but it sounds like you've learned a lesson.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So is it 100% now? It feels good?
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Well, that's good news anyway. So any idea when you might be back?
I've been here in June 13th, but I say TBA, to be announced.
June 13th is very specific.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's like, you never know, things happen. The date was set at first, but it got postponed, you know. So it's our job as the athletes and the participants to always be ready.
Very good. Any hints on who it might be, your opponent?
9 times out of 10, it'd be the same opponent, Kent Cruz.
Okay, so you are looking for the Cruz fight. Very good.
Now, we saw your last fight. You stopped Rances Barthélemy in 6 rounds, and we wanted to ask you, what did you take away from that fight in terms of developing and learning and going to the next level?
Just more of being poised, being more professionalized, showing more professionalism, because you got to realize you got certain caliber fighters out there that bring certain attributes to the table, you know, as far as what they have in their arsenal. But what makes a professional is the things that they do without mess ups. You know, this is what they're going to do. You know, they're going to do it, and they do it good. They do it very good, you know, repeatedly, consistently. And it's our job, like I said, once again, it's our job as participants to basically sharpen our tools to the best of our abilities and act on a Class A performance. You got Floyd Mayweather, he perfected his craft, his fighting style. And then you got people doing the shoulder roll, fighting with one arm, doing defense, a disciplined type of drills as if they were Floyd because they want to perfect it. Me, on the other hand, when it comes to Francis Barthélemy, it wasn't really nothing he was doing. It was more so everything that I was not doing. You know, I've fought in the Olympics. When you go through the Olympics, you got a slew of opponents. You know, that's going to bring many different fighting styles, and it is our job to adjust. You know, so I had that luxury to go up against many different fighting styles. And these aren't just no people who is okay or semi-good. These are the best of the best of each country. So me being able to adapt and have muscle memory and know what I'm going against is one thing, but being able to make the adjustments and look poised, look sharp, still keep my professionalism. It's a mentality, though. You know, you can have a foresight for something, but you still got to make sure that you do what you need to do. To sum it up, I was just a little wide, just a tad bit. And when it came to defensive discipline, I was getting overly anxious because I definitely wanted to be dominant, but I should have kept more of a level head. That's about it. That's nothing that he was doing. It was everything that I was doing.
Now, he fought last Saturday, Barthélemy, and won a decision over Omar Juarez. Afterward, he called you out for a rematch. We got to ask, what would be your response to that?
My response to that would be, he gotta get to me. I don't mind doing any rematch clause with anyone on paper, but it wouldn't be wise. He hasn't ranked anything. He is ranked, but he hasn't won anything. The object is to prepare yourself to the next level as far as rankings, credentials. That's what everybody is doing. Nobody is fighting on the chitlin circuit for the entire remainder of their career. You know what I mean? Their reason for going through the chitlin circuit is so they can prepare themselves to the next level and be ranked in the WBC, WBA, IBF, those sanction bodies. That's the objective. I've been actually hearing things about I've been ducking fights. Never. I'm all the way for the sport of boxing. I'm all the way for it. The art of it, the craftsmanship of it, I respect it all the way. So it's not me saying, oh, no, I don't want to fight that man because I'm afraid. I don't want to fight that man because I feel like it's a 50-50 chance. No. I love the art of the sport. I love the craftsmanship of the sport. I respect it. The rules and regulations that's supposed to be there, I respect it. It should get bowed down to, but people don't see that, I guess.
Gotcha. Gary, on the same card, Rolly Romero stopped Ismael Barroso in the 9th round. A lot of people felt that the fight shouldn't have been stopped when it was. Did you see the stoppage? And if so, what were your thoughts on that?
I saw the stoppage. I saw the knockdown. Like I said before, the referee is the one that's in there in front of everything. Me personally, I can say it was a stupid stoppage. They could have let it go on some more, let Rolly stick his teeth in the guy some more.
Right.
It was a compatible fight. I think the guy had the upper hand early on. Rolly, he was militant, strong enough. He still had his coherentness, and the guy did as well. So I believe the referee should have let it go on just to see what it could have led to. It's a brutal sport. I think the referees now is the ones that are starting to be submissive and sensitive. This is a hurt business.
Right. Well, they say. Simple. Yeah, they say it's better to stop it too early than too late, but this was way early, I guess. Like in this way a lot of people look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Romero's now the WBA champion at 140. Is he someone you'd be interested in targeting?
Like I said, nobody has a target on their back by me. I want to say this loud and clearly. No one has a target on their back by me unless they are in my way to becoming the number one sanctioned carrier in whatever sanctioned body. I'm looking at the WBC, the IBF, and the WBA. I'm already ranked number 2. So is he ranked number 1?
Romero's got the belt now.
Yeah, he won the vacant WBA title. Belt. Yeah.
Well, he's gonna be on the chopping block in the future. It's that simple. It's like it's not a thing of I want to fight him or he's some shit. I want him. No. I would like to be able to call people that isn't ranked at all just for showmanship, just their love for the sport. But that's not what it's about. Eventually, it will come to that. Because it got a cycle. Everybody got to get cycled through. Everybody get their turn. And you got some people who fought their way up to a spot where though they deserve the chance.
No, you got
people they just.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What was that?
No, there's another fight in the division too, Josh Taylor versus Teofimo Lopez. What do you make of that matchup?
Styles make fights. Josh Taylor, he's an antsy type of fighter. Teofimo Lopez, he's a fast fighter himself. And I'm not talking speed-wise. I'm just talking about agileness, real jittery, nervous energy kind of. But he's bringing more of a panache style. When Josh Taylor, he got the European style, the feint up and down, and it's somewhat textbook to me. Can he hurt Teofimo Lopez? I believe so. Anybody can get hurt in those little gloves. Can Teofimo Lopez hurt him? Definitely, I believe that. I've seen it in his performances many times. Even hurt his opponent. Both of them is coming to fight, coming to win, be victorious. But at the end of the day, we all know that there will be one winner, there'll be one loser. And if I had to put money down, I'd go with Teofimo Lopez. But it'll be definitely a stiff competition for him. It's not going to be he's going to lay down for Teofimo Lopez at all.
Now, we've asked you this before, but, the 140-pound division, it seems to be somewhat open, while 135, on the other hand, has a lot of big names. You've weighed in as low as 137, for some of your fights. Can you see yourself dipping to 135, or do you plan to remain at 140 and see who moves up?
Oh, everybody's going to move up. I know. Me and my family, that's the thing. We already dissected this whole boxing game thing. You know what I mean? The way it's orchestrated, the way that the fighters, they can't keep weight, the information on who's who. We've known a lot of these people personally, so we understand Javante Tank Davis. We knew that he was going to eventually get big to the point where he can't hold the weight class no longer. He was going to shoot up. Would it be good as far as the game plan for him to do that? Yes, but stretch it, time frame it, so you can get all of your just due. So a lot of times you'll see him fighting at catch weights and stuff like that. Catch weights, why? For two reasons. He can rank himself in certain sanctioning bodies. On top of, now you don't have to put your body through so much stress by losing all that weight, sucking all the energy out yourself, and possibly losing the fight because you don't have no nutrients in you no more. You done burnt all your energy out in the gym. You left your fight in the gym. So now you kind of like go back and forth. Fight at catch weight, move back down, go back to your normal weight, 35 or 30. Then from 30, you go back to 35, catch weight, 37, something like that. Then you go back down, 35, one more time, claim something, vacate it. You know what I mean? Vacate it. Then go up to another catch weight, which is Ryan Garcia. And now eventually, you just waddle on the line. You seesaw in between 140 and 137. Well, really, you're going to move up to 140. Why? Because 30 is 35, 30, 37 is going to be difficult for you to keep. And plus, if you're going to devote yourself to the boxing game, this isn't no 40-yard dash. This isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. That's what I mean by I'm for the boxing. It's a marathon. You might see me go down to 35 or 37. Why? Because I done already got titles at 40. I done already cleaned out the division at 40. Go ahead and let them play at 40 now. I already made my mark. I done had this belt. I done had this belt. I done had this belt. I done had that belt. I don't move down, see what action down at 35. Guess what? They not going nowhere but the weight class I was just at. So now if I'm feeling depleted at 37 or 35, cool, I can go back up to 140. I'm pretty sure Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez is already there. Josh Taylor is already there. Who else? Ryan Garcia, he's there. Tank, he's there. You got who else? Devin Haney, he's there. He's about to be there. Regis Prograde, he's already there. Like, these are the people that are either there or either on their way to that destination. So I got the perfect weight class. It's the perfect weight class. I can go down or go up.
Yeah, that makes
and it's a win-win.
Yeah, all that makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned Tank Davis a number of times just now. He's obviously a potential opponent for you. He's also a potential opponent for Gary Jr. Who gets Davis first, you or him?
Hey, the world may never know, but it will happen. It will see a Russell.
So we're going to see Davis against one Russell or another.
Definitely, right. That's a win-win. You never know.
What'd you make?
Time to tell, right?
Very good. What'd you make of Davis's performance against Ryan Garcia?
He was a student. He became a full-fledged student. You know, he listened. He listened. He had a plan, and he stuck to the plan. And a lot of times, people can stick to a plan, but could they fulfill the plan? Could they execute it? That's where a lot of fighters come up short. They think just because they got a plan, they're going to win. No, everybody comes into a match with a plan. Doesn't mean that they all going to execute their plan. Yeah. Whoever execute their plan is who normally comes out victorious. There was a time Floyd Mayweather fought. It was an ugly fight. People booed. He executed his plan. And he said something that was profound. He said, you know, a lot of people forget the fact that it's still fighting, and it's not how you win all the time. It's as long as you win.
Right.
And that's
true. That he did. Yeah, that he did, whether you liked it or not.
Right, whether you like it or not, I won.
Right.
I know I'm normally giving y'all some pretty performances. This time wasn't pretty. I still executed the game plan. I had an ugly opponent in front of me. And, you know, I ain't show up and show out like I normally do. Right. Forgive me, y'all. But, hey, for those who hate me, kiss my ass. You know, they can't get mad at it. They hate you if you do, hate you if you don't at that point.
Now, speaking of Gary Jr., who Mike just brought up, any word on when he might return to the ring? I saw him post something where it looked like he's he looked like he's in good shape.
We always stay in good shape. That's what I mean. Like, we don't like peaking. And what I mean by peaking, we would train. We stay training so much, we don't want to leave our fight in a gym. So when we doing 2 days, we got to either lower the intensity or up the intensity during certain time frames. And that's what I was talking about when I said I sparred too early. Even though we had a time frame in which we said we were going to start sparring, but I was just so adamant and anxious, like, come on, man, let me just spot one on. It was a lot of guys in the gym at the time. And it was all sparring. I'm like, man, think about my father, you know, what would dad say, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let me get in there, man. Just work a little bit. Yeah. I did 10 rounds. I did 10 rounds, quick 10 rounds. 9th round, hurt my hand. I said, God damn. Man.
Is Gary Jr. gonna be your chief trainer going forward?
From this point on out, that's what he is. I told him he got some big shoes to fill. You know, because my father, he did it all for all of us. You know, he was a head coach, he was a head manager, and honestly, he promoted us when he needed to. He did it all. You know, and I'm telling Junior, as the oldest, this is his job. I hope he's ready and down for the task, because this isn't no 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of thing. You got to be all in.
Gotcha.
You know.
Do you think Gary Jr.'s got the makings of being a world-class trainer?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, because you have to realize a lot of these fighters or coaches that became what they are is because there was a lot of muscle memory, things that they've experienced, things that they done did already. So, do I believe he got the potential, the wisdom, and the knowledge and stuff like that to become a full-fledged coach? Yes, a great one at that.
There you go. So, in your opinion, how far away do you think you are from winning a major world title?
Oh, shoot, these belts are getting tossed around like pieces of tissues now, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched, you know?
This year, maybe?
This year, probably for the WBA. I wouldn't call that a major belt. Depends on how this competition is getting lined up. You got Regis Prograde. He got something coming up in the future. Like you said just a few seconds ago, you got Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez. That's going to be at a 140 weight class. Now, those are the titles that I really want. So if I put myself in a position, continue to be victorious and get these guys out of my way, that's in my way, you know, I can see by the end of this year, I can start off New Year's. We'll be hitting New Year's off with a bang.
Well, you got 6 months to go. Do you think you'll fight just one more time the rest of the year? Is that the plan, or could we see a couple times?
Of course. I can see myself rumbling a couple of more times before the 6 months is over.
Very good. We look forward to that. Gary, thanks once again for taking the time to be with us. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, sure was.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Take care, Gary. So we look forward to seeing you in the ring soon, man. It's time for Mike and I to go toe to toe. This week, the topic is the top 3 most underrated PBC fighters. Mike has his list and I have mine. We have not shared or compared any notes. So, Mike, why don't you kick things off?
Just really quick to preface it, I just wanted to acknowledge my number 4. It's just Gary Russell Jr. Could easily be in my top 3, but he just didn't quite make it. So number 3 for me is Isaac Cruz. You know, I could base this solely on his meeting with Gervonta Davis. You know, I believe Davis when he said he fought with a hand injury, you know, obviously, but a lot of fighters have physical issues during fights. All I know is that Pitbull came ready to fight and he pushed Tank harder in their 2021 fight than anybody else, you know, has in a close defeat. He wasn't overwhelmed by the moment, first of all, and he did what he did, which was attack. And it almost paid off in a huge way for him. Imagine if he had won that fight. I hope he gets another shot at Davis. My gut tells me he wouldn't get blown out even by a healthy Tank. Cruz also stopped Diego Magdaleno in one round in just a breathtaking performance. He outpointed Francisco Vargas and he stopped Yuriorkis Gamboa, among other good performances. And the guy's only 24 years old, so he's really just getting started. So I'm really excited about this guy. I think he's really good, and I'm really curious to see how his career plays out.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice because Cruz really is that good. We saw what he did against Tank. And we've seen what he's done in subsequent fights. And, man, what a big fight that would be, a rematch against Gervonta Davis. I mean, I was at Davis versus Garcia, and everywhere Cruz went, I mean, he was mobbed. I remember the crowd reaction when he fought on the Spence versus Ugas undercard. There's no doubt that he has built himself up. He's got a fan-friendly style. And we've seen what he can do at the highest of levels. He's got a slew of good wins as well. So I think that's a great pick. And, man, Isaac Cruz is really, really good. I truly want to see that rematch as well. My number 3, although this is really in no particular order, maybe it is, who knows, is Mario Barrios. Barrios is now campaigning at 147, but he held the title at 140. And I think he's underrated because he lost 2 in a row. Yeah, but look at who he lost to. Gervonta Davis and Keith Thurman. I don't know too many 140-pounders who can come close to Keith Thurman, and I don't need to explain just how good Tank Davis is. But we saw what Kenneth Sims did with Batir Akhmedov, and we just spoke about. And just remember that Barrios beat Akhmedov years ago, and look, it could have gone either way, which is, you know, how it goes when you fight Akhmedov, but Barrios put Akhmedov on the canvas twice, you know. But beyond that, it's almost an eye test for me. I was really impressed with his KO win over Giovanni Santiago. I mean, no, Santiago isn't a world beater, but I liked what I saw from Barrios. I think now that he's settled into the 147-pound division, he's going to prove to be a lot better than people realize, and I'm looking forward to his next bout.
Yeah, I think Barrios is a good choice. You know, starting with the fight against Akhmedov, it was controversial, but he won the fight, and we were just describing how good Akhmedov is. He's really good.
Right.
To beat a guy like that is something. I think Ryan Carl's a good fighter, and he stopped Ryan Carl. Had the two fight. I applaud him for fighting Tank Davis and Keith Thurman back-to-back fights. I mean, it's crazy on some level, but man, that's kind of how it should be in boxing. You should be fighting guys on that level. And and he looked good against Santiago too. I see him as a good all-around fighter. He could box, he could pop. He's another guy. I think he's 27 years old. He's in his prime, so I think he's got a lot of good things in his near future.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move to the next one, and I'll kick this one off. On my list is a guy who I believe is a borderline pound for pounder in Brandon Figueroa. Take a look at this guy's resume and realize his only loss was a very close one to a man in Stephen Fulton, who was a top pound for pounder, in my opinion. And again, as I said, that fight was very close. Could have gone either way. Some people believe Figueroa won. But look, beyond that, Figueroa stopped Louis Neary in 7 rounds. Louis Neary in 7 rounds. That is an impressive win that I think folks either forget about or overlook. He stopped Moises Flores in 3. Carlos Castro in 6, and holds a win over Mark Magsayo, a former world champion, in a fight where he almost stopped Magsayo as well. That is damn impressive. Not to mention he has one of the most fan-friendly styles in the game today. I think Brandon Figueroa is criminally underrated, and I expect him to win a world title sooner rather than later.
So, yeah, it's kind of funny the way this is coming down, but so he's on my list too, but I'm going to hold off for a minute and talk about Figueroa in a couple minutes. Yeah. So,
sure.
So my number 2 could easily be my number 1. The reason my number 1 is my number 1, and it's obviously Figueroa, is because I think Figueroa is maybe just a little bit more underappreciated than my number 2. So my number 2 is Deontay Wilder. I think people will get how special Wilder has been one day. If they don't now, I think a lot of people do now. 42 knockouts and 43 victories and a 5-year, 11-fight run as heavyweight champion is enough to make him just a no-brainer first ballot Hall of Famer. His best wins are probably a pair of them against Luis Ortiz, but he has more of them, obviously. And while another generational talent in Tyson Fury got the better of him in their trilogy, he put Fury down 4 times. Only Fury's crazy recuperative powers, which are just nuts, prevented Wilder from taking him out too. Imagine how he'd be perceived if he'd knocked Fury out a couple of times. Wilder is already one of the best of his generation, but he could still enhance his resume. Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua, and Andy Ruiz are among potential opponents, guys that are being talked about. And I have to add this in the end. Wilder arguably isn't even a natural heavyweight, at least not a modern one. He's naturally around 210, 250 pounds. So everything he's done against naturally bigger men. This guy is just absolutely freaking remarkable. On top of everything else, he's just like maybe the most fun to watch of any fighter in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deontay Wilder and Caleb Plant are 2 guys who are right there for me, but I feel like they are starting to get appreciated the way they should. But I'm with you, especially as far as Deontay Wilder. You look at it from a pound for pound sense. This guy's laying out contenders that are routinely 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier than he is. It's really impressive. And beyond that, it's a man who made 10 defenses of his WBC title, has perhaps the greatest single weapon we've ever seen in boxing, or in that division, is significantly lighter than all of the guys he faces, and he breathed life back into the heavyweight division. That run he went on from the Bermain-Stavern rematch all the way up to the Fury trilogy was just amazing. I mean, he breathed life back into a division that had been sort of dormant for years, and he had, viral knockout after viral knockout. That is so impressive when you look at his accomplishments, the excitement that he brought, and the drama that accompanied each of his fights. I'm with you. I think he's a Hall of Famer as well, and I think that's a great choice. I do feel that people are starting to appreciate him more so than they did before, particularly after that 3rd Fury fight, where he just showed guts that you don't see even in boxers.
Yes, sir.
I
didn't even mention that.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I didn't mention his courage. His courage is another thing. Yeah, I could go on.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
I think he still has his doubters, but I think in the end, I think everybody's going to come around in the end.
Yeah, I agree as well. All in good time. But yeah, appreciate Deontay Wilder while you still have him. Let's go to number one. You want to kick it off with Mr. Figueroa?
Yeah, so it took me a while to come around on Figueroa because he doesn't have a pretty style at all by any means. He's a relentless pressure fighter, but I'm sold on him now. You laid it out, well. All you have to do is look at the Stephen Fulton fight in 2021. Everyone is justifiably raving about Fulton's boxing ability. He's on pound for pound list now. And Figueroa arguably deserved the decision against him, although I scored it for Fulton. Figueroa has dominated pretty much everybody else, including, then unbeaten Luis Neri, as you mentioned, Mark Masayo in his most recent fight, as you mentioned. The only other fight he didn't win was a draw against Julio Sea, but Sea came in at 4.5 pounds overweight, and Figueroa still fought him, which I think says a lot about Figueroa. I think an ultimate compliment is that if I were a manager, I wouldn't want my fighter to face Figueroa under normal circumstances. You're probably going to get broken down by the pressure and lose and get knocked out. And even if you don't, this guy's going to take you to hell and back, which is, could have long-term ramifications. Fulton would acknowledge that, I think. And Figueroa, in the last thing, is that Figueroa has plenty left. He's only 26 years old, so I'm not even sure we've seen the best of Brandon Figueroa. So another guy I look forward to seeing how his career plays out.
Yeah, scary good. And, I've already spoken a bit about him, so I'll move into the final name on my list. And real quick, as I mentioned before, two guys who were right there, Deontay Wilder and Caleb Plant, two people I also feel are underrated and underappreciated as well. But last on my list isn't underrated today per se. I feel like more so all time looking at his career, and that's Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz is a Hall of Famer in my opinion. He's never been on a pound for pound list for some weird reason, but yet he's given us a few Fight of the Year candidates, and he's had some great victories. You look at who he beat at 122; it's like a who's who of that weight class. The two wins over Abner Maris, which shouldn't be taken lightly at all. This man beat Kiko Martinez 7 years ago. It's a guy, Kiko Martinez, who's upsetting young guys, who've been upsetting young guys over the past couple of years. Again, Leo Santa Cruz stopped him in 5 rounds 7 years ago. Do you know how impressive that is? And then you've got the win over a prime, Carl Frampton in the rematch, a slew of other wins. I don't think Leo Santa Cruz has ever really gotten his just due for whatever reason, but to me, he's sort of the great example of an underrated PBC fighter.
Yeah, that's a good call. I actually considered Leo for my list. He came pretty close to making my list. He's kind of fights like Brandon Figueroa. I think he's garnered a lot of respect over the years. But I'm not sure people really appreciate what he's accomplished. I don't know if you mentioned the major titles in 4 divisions, which
That's right.
Which is meaningful even in an era when titles don't mean as much as they once did. And as you mentioned, he fought a bunch of top guys. Guys you didn't mention, he also beat Eric Morel, Christian Maharis. He lost the first majority. I think it was a majority decision. The first fight with Frampton. That was the year Frampton was the fighter of the year. Came back and beat Frampton in the rematch, which I think was really, really impressive. I think arguably the most impressive victory of his career. And you have to. Last thing is you have to admire his confidence for moving up in weight to fight Tank Davis.
And stand and trade with him.
Yeah, that was a big swing. Yeah, and then to stand and trade to him, that took some kind of guts. Santa Cruz is one of the best, most entertaining fighters of his era, and he's not finished. I think he still has more to give. So, good call on Leo.
Yeah. Hopefully he's back in the ring soon, and hopefully we convince you guys to come back and check us out again. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the PBC Podcast. We want to thank Gary Antuanne Russell for joining us, and of course, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next week for more boxing talk, more banter, and more interviews, of course, right here on the PBC Podcast.